Hey. Sup, everybody? How we doing tonight? Good to see you guys. Excuse me. Come on in, grab a seat, get comfortable, and let's do this. Let's do this. Let's do this. Welcome to all of y'all. Good to see you here. It is so
Awesome!
to see you all, and I appreciate you guys joining me tonight. What's up, PW? Let's see who we got in the house tonight. Look at that. Looks like strike first, strike hard, no mercy. What's up, little brother? Good to see you, Miss Brandy. OG's in the house. Thanks for joining us tonight, my dear PW. We love you. Thanks for being here. Nachos 8. What's up? What's up? Thanks for joining us tonight. I appreciate you so very much. Let's see. Crime time with Mama Bear. Yes, you did. You beat me. I'm a slacker. So sorry, but that's okay. I'm glad to see you here in the chat, Mama Bear. It's great to see you guys tonight. So very much. I appreciate you guys. So very much. As we decide to do
the true story behind Jeffrey Dahmer.
It should be an interesting story. So, again, he was born and raised right here where I'm from, guys, and ended up where he was arrested at years and years later. So, let me see here. Nacho's asked a question. Michelle has been struggling for a few days with another creator. I'm sure a lot of you guys have seen it. So I think she's just kind of taking some time for herself. She was in here this morning. I hope she's okay. I did notice that she did take down a lot of her stuff. I don't know if it's just because she's, you know, again, trying to take some time for herself and to get everything straightened out. I do believe. So I absolutely agree, PW. You said yep, EP, yep up, yep up, yep up. So for those of you guys that do frequent her channels, you're obviously welcome over here, as is she, and that if she doesn't, I'm sure she'll be back, guys. I Michelle has a passion for this that I've seen in her, which is why, of course, I kind of noticed her. I'll be honest with you, that's a lot like mine. So I hope she's okay. Um, I've sent her multiple emails and stuff telling her to keep her head up. She's doing good, this and that. Don't let other people bother you. But, anybody can say that, guys. Until you're actually dealing with the scenario, it's a rough thing. And I get it. I do. So, absolutely, Nachos. Absolutely. I understand completely. It's great to have all of you in here, though. I do appreciate that. What's up, Red? Are you scared?
Are you scared, buddy? Come on. I love this new thing. This new toy is so cool. I love it.
I love it very much. What's up, son? How we doing tonight? Good to see you. My son is Sean Goes Rambo. Thank you, bud. I appreciate it. Lurking. Always lurking. Welcome, Miss Pamela. Your dog is.
Hey, puppy. What you doing, little guy? I love it. I love it. I wonder. Dun, dun, dun. Let's see here.
What's this one sound like? Oh. Oh, yeah. Oh, oh.
Anyway. Da-da-da. Da-da-da-da-da-da. And I'm looking down upon all of you. Anyway.
Okay. Anyway, I'm done playing. Just wasting a little time before everybody gets in here. I don't like that echo, so let's see here. Is that's no, I don't like that either. How about that one? That's pretty good. I gotta make sure I have the right sound. Transporter could not handle it. If he came in here and I was talking that way, he would lose a grip on life. I promise you that. He'd have crosses out and everything. That's awesome. Absolutely awesome. So, Mama Bear's in the house. Yes, she is. Come on in, guys. Get a seat. As I always say, make sure you got some popcorn tonight. If you could see my dogs, I'll bet. I love it. What was I saying? I don't remember. See, you were right, Mama Bear. Another toy to distract me. It sucks, doesn't it? It's okay. It's okay. I love y'all so very much, and I appreciate you guys for being here. From me to you, there you go. Today's stream, for those of you that were here today, guys, it was great. I appreciate you all for joining me. I think it was very informative, and we learned quite a bit. And you know, there's some crazy stuff going on. So I thank you all for being there this morning or early this afternoon. And when again, I hope to see you all tomorrow, as I do early afternoon, 12:30. I should be live. Tomorrow, Miss WSU Kim is supposed to join us up here on panel and get her story out. We're going to be talking to her and asking some questions and letting her speak her piece, guys. So that's going to happen tomorrow. Once that's said, that'll probably take most of the show, but if there is anything left, we'll be delving into, again, looking back on Moscow, Idaho, and what we may have missed. Seriously, what's the matter, Mama Bear? Welcome.
Welcome, Miss Nikki. It's so good to see you here. Thank you very much for joining us tonight. It should be a great show.
So, what did you say seriously for, Mama Bear? Excuse me. That's better. Oh man, I don't know. 18 people here, guys. Please don't forget to. Damn it, I hate that. Hello. Okay. Please don't forget to. There we go. That's better. To leave me some DNA on the like button, and of course, share this out to anybody you can think of that would want to see this. Leave me a comment at the end of the show, guys, because that's so very important. I appreciate that very, very much. Very much. Make sure everybody got their personal invitations. Hope everybody's having a good night tonight. Hope everybody had a good day today. And let me see. Welcome, Miss April. Is anybody else like when I do this, the voice changing and all that stuff? Are you guys getting? You're hearing all of that and everything. I just want to make sure it's going through. I gotta play with this thing to learn it, but I can't do anything. And the only way I can learn it and see that it's working is by what you guys tell me. So, yes, we represent the Lollipop Guild. The Lollipop Guild. What's up, Rowdy? So, yes, you're hearing it. I get it. Transporter losing his shit. Well, if I do this one.
Transporter. I'm here to swallow your soul. He would probably shit his pants.
I'll be honest with you. That's what I think it would happen. That's all. Just saying. By the way, welcome to all of you guys that are not really in chat. Damn it. Nope.
Nope. There we go. Okay, sorry. Thank you guys for everybody that's not in chat, that's out here just watching. I appreciate you guys being here as well, so very much. Good evening, Miss Diane. Thank you so much for joining me. Appreciate you. Like I said, guys, I'm playing with this thing, trying to learn all the different settings and stuff on it, and I gotta do that by doing that. So that's the issue. Okay. And I got this thing has so many dials and settings and all that fun crap. There we go. And okay, yes. Only people with pennies find it funny. You don't think it's funny? You don't think I'm funny? That's so good. I think I'm funny. Welcome, Miss Amy. Good to see you. Thanks for joining us tonight. Multiple personalities, huh? That's a good way to look at it. Yeah, in one sense, I could be this person, and then I could be
this person. Yeah, baby. I like this one. Oh, yeah. Ooh. Welcome, Robin and Gizmo. Good to see ya. Good to have you here.
Yeah, this is too much fun to play with, guys. Way too much fun to play with. But anyway, I'm just trying to check out all the different things, and obviously a lot of this stuff isn't going to be something I'm going to need. I got birds in here now. Interesting. Ding, ding, ding. Bing, bing, bing. Okay. Whoa. Okay. All righty then.
I love it. You guys are so great.
Absolutely. Do not hit a cat button. I'm begging you. I don't have a cat button on here. Welcome, Miss Paula. Good to see you tonight. Thanks for joining us tonight. Again, folks, tonight we are telling the true story behind the movie I Am Dahmer, or there's a few other ones of it, but it's the true story behind Jeffrey Dahmer. Excuse me. Welcome, Miss Sherry. It's good to see you. Thank you all for joining me tonight. Don't mind me as I was waiting for everybody to jump in here. I've been playing with my my little studio mixer thing that my son got me, and it's quite interesting to say the very least. Quite interesting. I still love this one the best.
This is my favorite thing of all things. I love it. Can I do an entire stream like this? How do you think that would go? Do you think it would go over good or no? I mean, come on. Yes. Yes. The verdict came in on Letitia. She was a bad girl. Bad girl. And she's going away for a long time. Bye-bye, Letitia. Haha. Yeah, baby.
Anyway, okay. I will stop now, I promise. Just had to try it. Yeah, I agree. Fry her. She's a mess. Excuse me. And that trial was, to me, I mean, it wasn't as long and drawn out, but it was almost as bad as what's his name? The Boston Marathon trial. I can't remember his name. Welcome back, Nikki. Good to see you. I didn't get to see the actual result. All I did was hear that she got some stuff. She got some stuff. Evil is an understatement. No lie, Nachos. No lie. That woman is just I don't understand. I do not understand where these people, get what they get. The idea is to do the things they do. Just like there's another one that's coming up soon that I definitely want to watch. I hope that it does not overlap the Koberger trial. And that is Sarah Boone. That woman, I do not like her. Paula, yes. Life with no parole. There you go, Paula. Laughing Black Baboon. Welcome. Good to see you. Letitia, the nutcase, like Warnos. Oh, yeah. I think she's worse. I think she's worse than Warnos because Warnos actually kind of like had a reason to be the way she was. Letitia has no reasoning to be what she is. You know what I'm saying? That's just my opinion, guys. I'm just saying. Yeah, she shouldn't get paroled. Should not get paroled. Not when there's a child involved. I'm sorry. No. Nope. Yes. It's good to have you here, Laughing Black Baboon. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. What's up, Miss Pamela? Pamela. Felt sorry for the judge. He sat crying. I know. I know. It's horrible. Everyone have fun with Dago and his new toy the next 2 days. I'm over it. There's other things that are more important that I got to figure out, like the voiceover buttons, the mute, and all the other important actual buttons, not the toy buttons, That's all. And I will get it figured out. And when I yell at everybody, I can do this. Yes. Although I would never do that. So anyway. What's up, Mud Man? Good to see you. Thank you all that are jumping in here. 30 awesome people in here, guys. Please leave me a little DNA on the like button, folks. Share this out to whoever you think would be interested. And leave me some comments at the end of the show. I definitely appreciate that so very much. So very much. All right, everybody. So again, the true story, Miss Carrie Pristula. Am I saying that correct? If I'm not, I am so sorry. Yes, Miss Nikki, I do, and I don't really use sound effects. I don't need to. I just heard Just heard a glove had an ID of one of the 4 students belonging to BK. Um, I have not heard that, Carrie, but thank you. Where did you find the info at, hon? First of all, thank you for joining us tonight. I appreciate that. And second of all, that's interesting to know. Very interesting, actually. All right, let's see what we got here. Let's see. My friend Dahmer. I'm sorry. Yes. I'll give you guys a clip real quick of the movie itself, and then we'll jump into it, folks. Again, everybody, please let me know how the audio works and all that, how it's coming across to you guys. That's important. If there's any issues of any whatsoever, please let me know. Harsh put out a short video YouTube. I'm just seeing if it's true. Okay. At this point, I don't know yet, Carrie, but I am definitely going to be looking into that once I get through this, for sure, because that's an interesting piece of info to know and to hear. So I will be looking into it for facts, folks. These are facts. Again, thank you all.
I now present to you, Jeffery.
Sorry. Thank you all for joining me tonight. I do appreciate you guys so very much. Let me give you guys subtitles and we'll play through this quickly. Again, this is the trailer for the movie My Friend Dahmer, from 2017, which is what I'm basing the true story on, but we all know that there's multiple variations of this. So here we go. And there we go. Yeah, I know. I'm 20 minutes from him, so well, from where he grew up, which was kind of a interesting scenario when we figured it out. Quite interesting. So that is the movie. It's actually a good movie if you guys haven't seen it. I enjoyed it, and then of course we had the whole series. It was on Netflix. You know, with Evan Peters. That turned out to be great. But tonight we're going to talk about the real deal behind it. So let's see what we got here. I truly believe he wasn't born sociopath. He was created by the bullies and mistreated by his mother. He, in my opinion, PW, he had some tendencies in his body, in his mind, in his soul, to be able to bring this out of him. Those things didn't help. Those things probably made it worse and turned him into who he is. Yes, I can agree with that. But if he would have had, let's think about it like this: what if he would have had a perfectly normal life where he wasn't bullied? He was a popular kid. He did very well. He did this. He did that. He had good parents. What if? Do you think it had turned out to be the same person? It's an interesting theory to think about, isn't it? There had to have been something there, though. Is all I'm saying. So, genetically proven. One moment, everyone. Let me get this rolling for you. What's up, Pookie? Good to see ya. Thanks for joining us tonight, bro. Yeah, I agree with the whole thing being inherited from his father. Yeah, yep. And I believe it started there, and it was just, it grew because of the issues that he dealt with. So, so here we go, folks. The true life story behind Mr. Jeffrey Dahmer. Thank you for being here once again, folks. I do appreciate you so very much. Nikki, that's not the Pookie you think it is. That's the male Pookie that has been here for a long, long time. But I'm sure he appreciates you being so nice to him. I'm just letting you know. That's how we start, everyone. To look at him in this form is very hard for me to do because of knowing who he is. Then we see that. Quite interesting, if you ask me. Exactly. Exactly.
Before we get into the content, I just wanted to explain why I have chosen to make this video. One reason is because of the recently released Jeffrey Dahmer series on Netflix, which is brilliant if you haven't seen it yet. But the main reason I am making this is because I have always been extremely fascinated and horrified with the life and crimes of Jeffrey Dahmer. Cannibalism is so unfathomable, such a grotesque nightmare, I simply cannot comprehend it. You can put on the History Channel and hear of the Indonesian tribe of New Guinea, deep in the heart of some vast undergrowth, consuming the heart of an enemy. Or you can watch documentaries on the Mayan civilization, who would harvest human organs and consume them in sacrificial rituals. Cannibalism is something that does not happen in the 21st century. It does not happen in suburban America. I remember reading reports on the case. They just didn't seem possible. Cannibalism, necrophilia, dismemberment, drilling holes through skulls, preserving bones, freezing organs, dissolving human beings in acid. It just seemed too far-fetched. But Jeffrey Dahmer was able to fool everyone into thinking that he was a regular man. He fooled judges, his family, friends, and unfortunately, 17 young men and boys over a 17-year period. As Jeffrey Dahmer himself said, he, quote, created a Holocaust. Jeffrey Lionel Dahmer was born in West Allis, Wisconsin, on May 21st, 1960, to parents Lionel and Joyce Dahmer. The pregnancy was a traumatic and painful experience for Joyce, who suffered with severe full-body convulsions that would last for hours, leaving her incapacitated and reeling with pain. In his 1994 book, A Father's Story, Lionel Dahmer wrote, quote, "At times, her legs would lock tightly in place, and her whole body would grow rigid and begin to tremble. Her jaw would jerk to the right and take on a similarly frightened rigidity. During these strange seizures, her eyes would bulge like a frightened animal, and she would begin to salivate, literally frothing at the mouth." Lionel also wrote how Joyce vomited throughout the pregnancy, almost as if she was revolted by having Jeffrey growing inside her. Her condition also caused Joyce to continuously believe she would miscarry. At the time Jeffrey was born, Lionel was attending the Marquette University in Milwaukee, working towards a degree in chemistry. His studying kept him away from the family home for long periods, meaning he was unable to devote as much time to Jeffrey as he would have wished. Time aside, Lionel flourished in fatherhood and doted on his son. Joyce, however, grew to be extremely tense and angry around her son. She had also become greedy for attention, believing she deserved more from people, especially her husband, who spent any free time he had with their son. Whenever Lionel was home, Joyce demanded constant attention and praise from him, and would fret over the most trivial of matters, working herself into a high state of anxiety until she got what she wanted. Reality was, Joyce deeply resented her husband for leaving her to raise Jeffrey for the majority. Lionel, growing concerned for his wife's stability and the strain it caused on their marriage, moved his family to go live with his mother, giving Joyce the additional help that she obviously needed. Despite uprooting the family, the Dahmers' marriage was slowly but steadily deteriorating, and as a result, they argued constantly. Jeffrey, often listening at the top of the stairs, would take each argument to heart, especially when hearing his mother curse him and her husband for spending
Well, Lisa, I've seen you in here before, Lisa. At least I've seen your name in here. Appreciate having you here. Thanks for joining us. So very much. Thank you, Heather. Again, for those of you that don't realize or understand, my channel is 100% crowdfunded. That's what keeps me coming to you guys live every single day. It pays the bills to keep me rolling. So thank you, Heather. I do appreciate that. That's why I post these links. As far as donating goes, that's up to you guys. Should you choose to do it, it is very much appreciated. If not, then no big deal. Char Baron, it's okay. Char Baron, thanks for joining us. It's so great to have you here. That's very interesting, actually, to know. Absolutely, Lisa, no problems. Let me see. Okay, all right, guys, let's move on. Thank you guys once again so much for joining us tonight.
far too much time together. Jeffrey believed he was the cause of the desolation of his family, a belief that stayed with him his entire life. Shortly before his 4th birthday, Jeffrey was diagnosed with a double scrotal hernia, which required emergency surgery. This was, many speculate, the catalyst for his future deviance, as no one, his parents nor medical professionals, had explained exactly what was happening to him. Jeffrey felt extremely exposed and frightened by the many strangers that were exploring his adolescent body, touching and probing his genitalia. During an interview with Larry King in 2004, Lionel Dahmer recalled Jeffrey's reaction to the surgery, saying, quote, "He was very subdued to say the least, and he walked around like a little old man. I can still see him in his robe. He complained about hurting very much. He wondered if he had had his penis cut off." Following the surgery, Jeffrey had become noticeably introverted and distant, locking himself away from his parents. Lionel and Joyce, resolute in normalizing Jeffrey's life, continued to push him into socializing with other children. Their efforts were in vain, and the little amount of affection he had previously shown his parents quickly disappeared. In October 1966, the Dahmer family relocated to Doylestown, Ohio, with the hope that a new environment would rejuvenate Jeffrey. Joyce, heavily pregnant with their second child, hoped that a fresh start would mend the fractures within the family. On December 18th, the Dahmer family welcomed a healthy baby boy to the world, and both parents anticipated an improvement in Jeffrey's escalating mood and enthusiasm at the prospect of having a baby brother. In a strategic move, Hoping it would make Jeffrey feel more involved, Joyce and Lionel allowed him to name his baby brother, who he named David. Having a brother did little to improve Jeffrey's behaviour and attitude. He remained neutral towards David, and although they rarely fought or argued, they never became close either. Soon after the birth of David, Lionel obtained his degree in chemistry and subsequently found employment as an analytical chemist. In 1968, the family relocated again to Bath, Ohio.
Now, this is where I'm talking 20 minutes from me, literally. I could get in my car. I actually thought about it, but maybe another time I will do a live stream from in front of his home, the childhood home where he was born, because it is literally 20 minutes from me. That's it. The house still stands. Everything's still there. In fact, his father lived there up until he passed away. So, quite interesting to say the least.
During family dinner, Jeffrey sat at the table, noticeably mesmerized, looking at the defleshed carcass of the roast chicken that they had just eaten. Jeffrey asked his father what would happen if you placed the bones of the chicken in bleach. Lionel, who had grown greatly concerned as to Jeffrey's low mood, was delighted that his son was displaying genuine scientific curiosity and interest. Lionel willingly demonstrated exactly how to safely bleach and later preserve the bones. From that moment, after watching his father dissect and bleach the chicken bones, Jeffrey became fascinated with animals and their bodies, curious how they looked in the inside. Initially, he collected insects, spiders, and dragonflies, keeping them in glass jars so he could watch them move freely. However, Jeffrey's inquisitiveness progressed, and he soon...
Sorry, folks. Welcome, a thick infant. It's so good to see you, Toodles. Thank you so much for joining us. It's been a while. It's great to see you back. I hope you're having a great night. Again, great seeing you. Thanks for being here tonight.
Soon begun to collect larger animals, mostly those he found dead on roadsides. Once he brought them home, he would skin the animals, taking great care to caress the exposed muscles beneath. After dissection, he would dismember the animals and dispose of the remains. From his earliest year at Revere High School, Jeffrey was perceived as an outcast and someone in which to keep a great distance. Classmates would later detail their shock and concern at the fact Jeffrey would routinely drink hard liquor and beer in school, which he would smuggle in the lining of his jacket. On one occasion, a classmate observed Jeffrey consume a large cup of gin at 9 a.m. and had asked him what he was drinking, to which he casually replied, quote, "Oh, it's just my medicine." Despite his alcohol abuse, Jeffrey was known to teachers as being a very polite student with high intelligence. He initially achieved only average grades, but his teachers attributed this to his escalating apathy, not unintelligence. It was during his high school years that Jeffrey discovered that he was homosexual. He did not confide his sexual orientation to his parents, for fear of creating further tension between them. By his own later admission, his earliest sexual fantasies had embraced the concept of the dominance and control of a completely subservient partner. When aged just 16, Jeffrey conceived and hoped to execute a fantasy of rendering a jogger unconscious, so he could then have sexual intercourse with the lifeless body. One day, with a baseball bat in his hand, Jeffrey concealed himself behind a row of trees adjacent to the path he knew the jogger would take. The plan was to wait until the man ran past, then he would strike. If the attack left the man dead, so be it. Fortunately, on this particular day, the jogger did not pass Jeffrey. Although the attack never come to fruition, it would mark the first time Jeffrey had attempted to attack another individual. It was also the first time that sex and violence connected in the real world, no longer confined to fantasy. Despite being regarded as a social pariah by his peers in high school, Jeffrey had nevertheless become somewhat of a class clown, due to the pranks he would stage to amuse his classmates. Jeffrey's bizarre acts, which included loudly bleating, simulating epileptic seizures and cerebral palsy, and knocking over goods at the local mall, become known as doing a Dahmer. These episodes, which received high praise from those in attendance, allowed Jeffrey to fit in enough to get through his schooling. However, by 1977, his grades had rapidly declined owing to his alcohol abuse and his continued apoplectic attitude, towards academic and social interactions. In 1978, during Jeffrey's senior year, Lionel and Joyce Dahmer ended their marriage. Couple counselling did not stop the rot in the relationship, and it became evident that nothing could fix the marriage, much to Jeffrey's despair. Jeffrey found the divorce hard, and because he was now 17 years of age, the court did not decide which parents he would live with. Lionel and Joyce were fighting bitterly in court over the custody of David, which enraged Jeffrey considerably. He believed he was unwanted and unloved, a burden that neither parent were interested in. Again, in his eyes, his brother was getting all the love and attention that he felt he himself deserved. Joyce eventually won full custody of David, and she promptly moved state and moved in with her family. Jeffrey would rarely see his mother and brother from that moment on. Lionel moved out of the family home and left Jeffrey in the care of his grandmother. On June 18, 1978, 3 weeks after graduating high school, aged just 18 years of age, Jeffrey claimed his first victim. 18-year-old Stephen Mark
Welcome,
Hicks
Laughingstock.
was hitchhiking to Lockwood Corners to attend a rock concert when he was picked up by Jeffrey. With the offer of plenty of beer, Hicks agreed to go home with Jeffrey. Jeffrey knew the family home was empty following the divorce, so the pair could enjoy their drinks without the fear of interruption. The pair enjoyed several hours of drinking and listening to music together. After a while, Hicks announced that he would have to leave, or he would not make it to the concert. By stating he wanted to leave, Jeffrey became full of anger and disappointment, fueled by the abandonment he had felt since his parents' divorce. Jeffrey knew he could not risk losing Hicks. Acting fast, Jeffrey retrieved a 10-pound dumbbell and struck Hicks twice in the back of his head. Once unconscious, Jeffrey used the bar of the dumbbell to strangle Hicks to death. Once deceased, Hicks was stripped of clothes, and Jeffrey stood over the nude corpse masturbating. Jeffrey then took the body under the crawl space of the house and, using a hacksaw, dismembered Hicks. Jeffrey buried the body parts in a shallow grave in the garden. Several weeks later, Jeffrey unearthed the remains and stripped the decaying flesh from the bones. The flesh was later dissolved in a fat of acid, which was then poured down a storm drain. Jeffrey pulverized the skeleton with a sledgehammer and scattered the fragments across a wooded ravine. Years later, when reflecting on Stephen Hicks, Jeffrey commented that the day he picked the young man up was the day that, quote, the nightmare became a reality. Once Jeffrey had actually committed his first murder, when he finally acted upon his fantasies, the compulsion to kill took control of his entire life. 6 weeks after the murder of Stephen Hicks, Lionel Dahmer and his new fiancée returned to the Dahmer home to find Jeffrey living there alone. That August, wanting to please his father, to be such a burden, Jeffrey enrolled into Ohio State University, hoping to major in business studies. However, Jeffrey would only last a single semester after missing too many classes due to his continued alcohol abuse. Lionel had once paid Jeffrey a surprise visit.
No, at some point, yes, he did move in with his grandmother, Pookie. He also, as you'll see coming up, but he did live with her at some point. Yeah, it was a mess. By the way, if you didn't hear me, welcome, Lapping Stock. It's great to have you here. Thanks for joining us tonight. And Willat Harris, thanks for joining here. I'm not sure what happened with Michelle's channel, folks. I know that she was having some struggles for anybody that's coming in here now, and I think she maybe needed to take some time for herself. I hope she's doing okay. I will be sending her an email just to make sure everything's good. But that's probably what she did, folks, just to take some time for herself. So we'll see. Again, guys, thanks for joining us tonight. We got 33 awesome people in here, guys. Completely awesome. Thank you.
Awesome!
For joining us, and please hit that like button, share this out if you would, please. I appreciate that so much. Yeah, I was getting ready to right now, actually. Mama Bear, thank you so much for reminding me, but it's coming. It was coming because all of the fun stuff is about to start happening, so thank you. All right, guys, let's move on.
Only to find his dorm room in complete disarray, floor strewn with empty liquor bottles. In January 1979, following heartfelt discussion with his father, with Lionel telling his son that his chances were running out, Jeffrey enlisted into the US Army. He was quickly deployed to Baumholder in West Germany, where he was trained as a medic specialist. After a promising start to his career, Jeffrey's performance deteriorated owing to his alcoholism, and on March 1981, he was deemed unfit and unsuitable for military duty. He was discharged and sent home, although honourably, as his superiors believed that any issues Jeffrey had in the army would not be problematic in civilian life. Interestingly, during the period Jeffrey served at the US Air Force Base in Germany, the remains of 5 mutilated murder victims were recovered in areas in close vicinity to the base. Jeffrey was never formally questioned or criminally associated with the murders, but many speculate it is more than simple coincidence. Upon his return to Ohio, Jeffrey initially moved in with his father and now wife. He insisted he be given chores to perform around the house to occupy his time whilst he searched for employment. Good intentions aside, Jeffrey continued to drink heavily, and whilst intoxicated, he would cause trouble in and around his father's home. Just 2 weeks after his return, Jeffrey was arrested for drunken disorderly conduct, for which he received a suspended 10-day jail sentence and a fine of $60. Lionel tried unsuccessfully to get his son to stop drinking and, at his wit's end, sent Jeffrey back to his grandmother's, who he knew was the only person capable of getting through to his son. He hoped her influence would be enough to help him find employment, sober up, and live responsibly. For a while, the living arrangement worked well. Jeffrey was accompanying his grandmother to church and helped her around the house. He did, however, continue to drink heavily. Under the guidance of his grandmother, Jeffrey found employment at the Milwaukee Blood Plasma Center as a phlebotomist, which pleased his father greatly. Jeffrey held this position for 10 months before he was laid off. He would remain unemployed for the next 2 years, leaving him to live off whatever money his grandmother could spare. In January 1985,
Now, something I did want to tell you guys. Welcome, Hash. Good to see you. When Jeffrey was discharged from the military, um, back then they would pretty much send you, I guess, where you wanted to go. They bought him a bus ticket and so much money and sent him, and he said he wanted to go to Miami. That's where he went. For those of you that don't know this, there was a little boy that went missing some years ago by the name of Adam Walsh. Okay. This is just a little piece of tidbit of information I'm throwing in here for anybody that didn't know this. But John Walsh, who had the show America's Most Wanted, so on and so forth, started up multiple foundations based on Adam Walsh. And Adam Walsh was found, sadly, unalived and beheaded in Miami, Florida, in a swamp area next to a drain ditch. Well, it has been said and proven that Jeffrey Dahmer himself was standing on, there was a little dock that people could walk out on to get to the drainage ditch to do maintenance work, I'm guessing. Jeffrey Dahmer was seen standing on that ditch pier, that little, whatever that is called, holding a bucket over top of the area they found Adam's head in. Okay. And it was kind of ironic considering the situation. But he was cleared of this, guys. Believe that or not, Jeffrey Dahmer was cleared of this. Okay. And he was visually seen by multiple people, and a vehicle was parked up the road where he was standing. You can put that together for yourselves. You know, it makes me wonder because the Adam Walsh case is still considered to be a cold case. It still has not been truly given closure because the person that they put in prison for it really kind of like went around the whole thing, as in, if you know, he didn't really do it and just admitted to it because he admitted to it, and that kind of scenario. So some people believe that Jeffrey Dahmer may be responsible for the unaliving of Adam Walsh, for those of you that know who he is. Kind of interesting, to say the least. You know, it's just a little tidbit of information I wanted to throw in there for you guys about the time that he got discharged from the military. Just interesting to me, at least. Thought maybe you guys might be interested. So again, sorry for interrupting. I will keep going with this. And again, thank you all for joining us tonight.
While sitting alone reading in the West Alice Public Library, Jeffrey was handed a piece of paper by a man he did not know, asking him if he wanted oral sex. Although he did not respond to the proposition, he later commented that the proposal stirred his old fantasies of control and dominance that he had developed as a teenager. The exchange with the man awoken the deviance that had already caused him to murder. As his fantasies gradually intensified, Jeffrey regularly visited Milwaukee's gay bars, gay bookstores, and gay bathhouses. Whilst there, he familiarized himself with the different locations, watching the inhabitants and studying how the men would approach each other and how they acted. This research would prove pivotal later when he used what he had learned at the clubs to convince many men to return home with him. At some point during his research, his need to be sexually intimate with a man grew too strong to resist, but he still lacked the confidence needed to approach somebody. Instead, Jeffrey stole a male mannequin from a clothing store. He used this as a sex aid, holding it whilst he masturbated and would lay beside it and caress the muscle outlines on its chest. His grandmother would later discover it whilst cleaning Jeffrey's bedroom and gave Jeffrey an ultimatum: get rid of it or move out. Jeffrey got rid of it, knowing it was time he sought out living partners. By late 1988, Jeffrey was a known regular at many different gay bars and bathhouses, and as such, many men became interested in him. By now, his confidence was high, and he was having sexual intercourse with many of the men he met there. He was still extremely frustrated, however, as his sexual partners would not remain still and silent during sex, as he had instructed. For this reason, Jeffrey began to lace his partners' drinks with sleeping pills so he could enjoy intercourse with their unconscious bodies. Jeffrey soon got sloppy, however, and overconfident, and he got caught administering sleeping pills to numerous men. As a result, the bathhouses and clubs revoked his memberships. This left Jeffrey little choice when meeting men, having to resort to cheap motel rooms. On November 20th, 1987, Jeffrey met 25-year-old Stephen Duomi in a West Alice bar. The two flirted and danced together, all seeming harmless. Jeffrey made it clear to Stephen that he wished to be more than friends and suggested the pair rent a room in the nearby Ambassador Hotel in Milwaukee. Once inside the hotel, Jeffrey spiked a drink with sleeping pills and gave it to Stephen. After his arrest, Jeffrey stated that he had no intention of killing him, he just wanted to lay next to his unconscious body. However, when Jeffrey woke the following morning, he found Stephen dead in bed, with blood dried around his mouth, and his body was covered in bruises. Jeffrey's fists and forearm were also heavily bruised. Jeffrey had obviously beaten the man to death, but had no memory of doing so. Panicked, Jeffrey left the hotel and fetched a large suitcase. Stephen's body was transported in the case back to Jeffrey's grandmother's house, where it was dismembered before dissolving the flesh in acid. 2 months after Tuomi's murder, Jeffrey encountered 14-year-old James Doxtatter outside a gay bar. With an offer of $50 to pose nude for the photograph, James returned home with Jeffrey. After the photographs were taken, James was rendered unconscious when he drank a sleeping pill-laced beer. After fondling the boy, Jeffrey strangled him to death and took the corpse down to the crawl space, where it was dismembered. Jeffrey was able to preserve James's itch, which he used many times as a masturbation aid. On March 24th, 1988, Jeffrey met a bisexual man named Richard Guerrero outside a local gay bar. Using the same offer as he did for James Doxtatter, Jeffrey offered money in exchange for nude photographs. Once back at his grandmother's, Guerrero was given a sleeping pills-laced beer and was strangled with a leather strap. Before dismembering the body, Jeffrey performed oral sex on the corpse. In September 1988, Jeffrey's grandmother asked him to move out. Amongst the reasons voiced was her strong disapproval of him bringing young men back to her home. She also complained of the foul odours emanating from both the basement and the garage. Jeffrey left the only home he had ever felt comfortable in and moved into a one-bedroom apartment in a cheap but rough neighbourhood. The day after moving into his new apartment, whilst checking out his new surroundings, Jeffrey encountered a 13-year-old Laotian boy. The pair talked at length, and Jeffrey enticed the young boy to return home with him, promising $100 in exchange for nude photographs. Once inside the apartment, the boy was given a beer laced with sleeping pills. Whilst waiting for the pills to take effect, Jeffrey grew impatient and attempted to fondle the boy. Panicked, the 13-year-old ran out of the apartment, which Jeffrey had forgot to lock when they entered earlier. The boy ran to his home that was situated nearby. Upon hearing their son explain what had just happened, the boy's parents contacted the police, who would later arrest Jeffrey. On January 30th, 1989, Jeffrey was convicted of second-degree sexual assault, but released on bond until sentencing began in May. Immediately after the conviction, Jeffrey gave up tenancy of his apartment and moved back to his grandmother's home. During the interim, whilst waiting to hear if he would be given jail time, Jeffrey would kill again. On March 25th, 1989, Jeffrey met 24-year-old Anthony Sears at a gay bar. Jeffrey would later comment that on this particular occasion, he had no intention of murdering anyone, but shortly before the bar was about to close, Sears had approached Jeffrey and the pair agreed to leave together. Once at Jeffrey's grandmother's house, the pair engaged in oral sex. Sears shared several beers with Jeffrey, which was laced with sleeping pills. Jeffrey strangled Sears to death. The following morning, after spending the night naked next to the corpse, Jeffrey put the body in the bathtub where he dismembered it. Jeffrey would state later that he found Sears, quote, exceptionally attractive, and as such, it was the first victim for whom he permanently retained body parts. He preserved Sears's head and genitalia in acetone, and Jeffrey would keep these items until his arrest. On May 23, 1989, Jeffrey faced trial for the offence of sexual assault. During the trial, Jeffrey pleaded for leniency, stating, quote, this enticing of a child was the climax of my idiocy. If anything would shock me out of my past behaviour patterns, it is this. Judge Gardner, seemingly believing Jeffrey's sincerity and seeing something worth saving in him, gave Jeffrey a somewhat light sentence. Jeffrey received a year in a work-release prison on orders that he receive treatment and counselling for his alcohol and sexual problems. He was also required to register as a sex offender. In a terrible mix-up, Jeffrey, who was now fast approaching his release date, had not received a single session with professionals regarding his sexual and alcohol issues as requested by the judge. Lionel Dahmer, terrified and furious that his son had no treatment whatsoever, wrote to Judge Gardner expressing his concerns with Jeffrey and pleaded he not be released until he had received the adequate psychological treatments. He wrote, quote, I sincerely hope that you might intervene in some way to help my son, who I love very much, and for whom I want a better life. He later warned Judge Gardner that, quote, this may be our last chance to institute something lasting. Just one day after Lionel had mailed this letter, Jeffrey walked out of jail and back into the public, no better than he was before his sentence. On May 14th, 1990, Jeffrey again moved from his grandmother's home, moving into the...
And you know what, guys? Sadly, I have to say that in a lot of cases that I've looked at of imprisonment for a lot of it mostly is sex crimes, but for any variation of any crime, sadly, at this point, prisons do not. They have just started recently doing stuff like that, but they don't rehabilitate. They can't rehabilitate. Even with the programs that they're offering at this point, there's still really no rehabilitation for somebody like this. Somebody like this should have been locked into, in my opinion, which there aren't a lot of these that exist anymore, as we've talked about in the mental health conversations we've had, needed to be put into a hospital for the criminally insane. Okay. Therefore, you're getting the mental health help that you need, and you can be in prison to keep you off the streets. And that's not happening in a lot of senses, and hasn't happened in a lot of senses, especially back then. Things have changed recently. Yes, there are some things that are better, but here we are. This right here is a perfect example as what you just saw with his father. So, and you're right, Lisa, they didn't. In turn, more people had to die. It's sad. So, again, just a sad scenario.
Oxford Apartments on 924 North 25th Street in Milwaukee. Within a week of moving into his new apartment, Jeffrey murdered a sixth man. Jeffrey met Raymond Smith, a 32-year-old male prostitute, and he had accepted Jeffrey's offer to accompany him back to his apartment for $50 in exchange for sex. Jeffrey laced Smith's drink with 7 sleeping pills, then strangled him to death. The following day, Jeffrey purchased a Polaroid camera, which he then used to photograph Smith's corpse in sexually suggestive positions. Jeffrey would also photograph the dismemberment of Smith. Jeffrey boiled Smith's legs, arms, and pelvis in Soilex, a strong abrasive chemical, in a steel kettle, which left Jeffrey able to simply rinse the flesh from the bones. The skull was preserved and spray painted before being placed alongside the skull of Anthony Sears. In June 1990, 27-year-old Edward Smith was drugged and strangled at apartment 213. Rather than acidifying the skeleton or repeating previous methods of bleaching, Jeffrey placed the corpse of Smith in his freezer for several months in the hope that it would strengthen the skeleton. This process proved unsuccessful, and the body had to be dissolved in acid after thawing. Smith's skull was unintentionally destroyed when Jeffrey tried to dry it in the oven, which caused it to explode. Jeffrey would later tell the police that he felt terrible about this murder, as he was unable to retain any parts of him. Less than 3 months after murdering Edward Smith, Jeffrey met 22-year-old Ernest Miller on the corner of 27th Street. Miller had returned to the Oxford apartments on the strange offer of earning $80 to allow Jeffrey to lay next to him and listen to his heart and stomach. Once inside the apartment, Jeffrey attempted to perform oral sex on Miller, who declared, quote, "That'll cost you extra." Jeffrey crushed the last 2 sleeping pills that he had left and mixed them in Miller's beer. When the pills failed to work fast enough, Jeffrey retrieved a kitchen knife and slashed Miller's throat, severing his carotid artery, killing him within minutes. Miller's corpse was photographed and placed in the bathtub to be dismembered. Jeffrey first removed the head, which he would repeatedly kiss and talk to as he cut up the rest of the body. Jeffrey removed the heart, biceps, and portions of thigh muscle and placed them inside plastic bags, storing them in the fridge for later consumption. Miller's skull was painted with enamel and stored beside the others. 3 weeks later, Jeffrey met 22-year-old David Thomas at the Grand Avenue Mall. Thomas was persuaded back to the apartment for drinks and also for the promise of earning money for nude photographs. Jeffrey would later comment that he felt no sexual attraction to Thomas, but he nevertheless murdered him. Jeffrey did not retain any parts whatsoever, but he did photograph the dismemberment process. Following the murder of David Thomas, Jeffrey would not kill again for almost 5 months. Although, on at least 5 different occasions between October 1990 and February 1991, he unsuccessfully attempted to lure men back to his apartment. In February 1991, Jeffrey met 17-year-old Curtis Straughter at a bus stop. After striking up conversation with the young man, Straughter agreed to return home to Jeffrey's apartment to have nude photographs taken for money. Straughter was drugged that night and strangled with a leather strap. After dismemberment, Jeffrey kept and preserved the skull, hands, and genitals. Less than 2 months later, on April 7th, Jeffrey encountered 19-year-old Errol Lindsay, whom he persuaded to return home with him. Jeffrey drugged Lindsay's beer, and when he fell unconscious, Jeffrey performed sexual acts on him. Fueled by the growing lust to have a sexual partner that was completely at his disposal, Jeffrey experimented on Lindsay. A hole was drilled into Lindsay's skull and acid was poured into his brain. Jeffrey hoped this would leave Lindsay alive but completely submissive and unable to stop Jeffrey doing whatever he wished. Basically, he wanted a sexual zombie. Jeffrey later commented that Lindsay did regain consciousness and said, quote, "I have a headache. What time is it?" The experiment did not render Lindsay as submissive as planned, so he was drugged again and strangled to death. By 1991, the fellow residents at the Oxford apartments had begun to complain about the terrible smells that seemed to emanate from apartment 213. They also complained about hearing the sound of a chainsaw late at night. Sopper Princewell, the apartment block manager, did contact Jeffrey in response to the complaints, to which Jeffrey claimed the smells were the result of a broken freezer and that several of his tropical fish had died. On the afternoon of May 26, 1991, Jeffrey approached 14-year-old Conorak Simpson's phone and persuaded him to come home with him to take some photographs for money. Unbelievably, and unknown to Jeffrey, Conorak was the brother of the young man that Jeffrey had gone to prison for fondling. Jeffrey drugged 14-year-old and performed oral sex on his unconscious body. Like Errol Lindsay, Conorak had a hole drilled into his skull, through which Jeffrey injected muriatic acid into the frontal lobe. After the procedure, Jeffery managed to wake Conorak and walked him to the bedroom, where, on the bed, was the nude body of Tony Hughes, who Jeffery had murdered just 3 days before. Once Conorak fell unconscious again, Jeffery drank several beers and sat naked with the boy. When Jeffery ran out of beer, he left his apartment to visit a nearby liquor store. In the early hours of May 27th, Jeffery returned from the liquor store to find Conorak sitting naked on a street corner, being comforted by 3 concerned women. Jeffery approached the group and explained that he and the boy were lovers and attempted to walk away with the boy. The 3 women dissuaded Jeffery, warning him that they had contacted the police. Upon the arrival of police officers, John Balzarak and Joseph Gabrish, Jeffrey's demeanour relaxed and he calmly spoke to the officers, explaining that the naked boy was in fact his 19-year-old lover and that he had just drunk too much. The 3 women, exacerbated, attempted to tell the officer that the boy had blood on his buttocks and how he had struggled when Jeffery attempted to lead him away. The officers were harsh with the women, telling one to, quote, butt out, and another to, quote, shut the hell up. Radio transcripts taken that evening reveal the officers had joked about Conorak, laughing as they reported the, quote, intoxicated Asian that they had found. Against the protests of the young women, the officers covered the boy with a towel and began to walk him back to Jeffrey's apartment. Once there, looking to verify his earlier claim, Jeffery showed the officers the semi-nude Polaroids he had taken earlier. The officers took a very brief look around the apartment, which consisted of looking around the living room, and then left the apartment, leaving the young boy in the hands of Jeffery. The officers had later reported a strange and terrible smell in the apartment, but never reported it at the time. That smell was the decomposing corpse of Tony Hughes. If the officers had conducted a proper search of the apartment, many lives could have been spared. If they had only conducted a background check on Jeffery, which is routine in domestic disputes, it would have revealed Jeffery to be a convicted child molester currently on probation. As soon as the 2 officers left the apartment, Jeffery injected a second syringe of acid into the boy's brain, which on this occasion proved fatal. The following day, Jeffery took a day's leave from work so he could devote his whole day to the dismemberment of Conorak Simpsonphone and Tony Hughes. He kept both skulls but discarded the rest of the corpses. On June 30th, 1991, Jeffery travelled to Chicago, where he later met 20-year-old Matt Turner at a bus station. Turner accepted the offer to travel back to Milwaukee, where Jeffery promised to conduct a professional photo shoot. Turner was drugged, strangled, and dismembered the day he went home with Jeffery. Jeffery removed the head, heart, liver, and kidneys and stored them in the freezer. 5 days later, 23-year-old Jeremiah Weinberger had returned to apartment 213 on the promise that Jeffery would provide alcohol for the entire weekend. Once drugged, Jeffery drilled a hole into Weinberger's skull and injected his brain with boiling water. Weinberger fell into a coma, from which he died 2 days later. On July 15th, 1991, Jeffery met 29-year-old Oliver Lacey, who agreed to pose for nude photographs. Lacey was later rendered unconscious with chloroform and then strangled to death. Jeffery later had sexual intercourse with the corpse before dismembering it. Jeffery had removed the head, heart, and most of the skeleton and stored them in the freezer. 4 days later, on July 19th, Jeffery received news that he was going to be fired from his job. Upon hearing the news, he had gone out and lured 25-year-old Joseph Braidhaft back to his apartment, where he was strangled. Jeffery left the corpse on his bed, covering it with a bedsheet. 4 days later, Jeffery removed the sheet, only to find Braidhaft's head crawling with maggots. Jeffery removed the head, cleaned it, and placed it in the fridge. On July 22nd, 1991, Jeffery approached 3 men at the local mall and offered $100 to any one of them to accompany him back to his apartment to pose for photographs. One of the men, 32-year-old father of 6, Tracy Edwards, agreed to the proposal and left the mall with Jeffery. Upon entering apartment 213, Edwards noticed a foul stench in the air and saw several boxes of muriatic acid scattered across the floor. Jeffery claimed the acid was used to clean bricks and that the smell was due to a plumbing issue. After several beers, Jeffery pointed to his tropical fish aquarium in the corner of the room, asking Edwards if he liked the colours. When Edwards turned to look, Jeffery snapped a handcuff onto his wrist. Edwards, laughing at first, asked what was happening. Jeffery suddenly pulled out a large knife and held it to Edwards' chest. instructing him to walk into the bedroom. When they entered the bedroom, Edwards noticed the many posters on the walls depicting nude men in suggestive poses. He could also see a 57-gallon drum in the corner, which seemed to be the major cause of the terrible smell that clung in the air. Brandishing the knife, Jeffery informed Edwards that he wanted to take nude photographs of him. In an attempt to delay Jeffery, he unbuttoned his shirt and declared he would love to be photographed, but could he remove the handcuff and put the knife away? Jeffery did not respond to the request. Instead, he put on a VHS copy of The Exorcist 3 on the TV. Edwards watched Jeffery as he began to rock back and forth, chanting and mumbling incoherently to himself. After several minutes, Jeffery turned back to Edwards. He placed his head on Edwards' chest, listening to the rapid beat of his heart. With the knife still held against Edwards, Jeffery declared that he was going to eat his heart. In an attempt to prevent an attack, Edwards continuously repeated to Jeffery that he was a friend and that he could be trusted to not run away. Edwards asked to use the bathroom, which Jeffery ignored. Edwards then asked if they could go sit in the living room and share a beer together. Jeffery accepted and walked Edwards back to the couch. When his beer was nearly empty, Edwards again asked to use the bathroom. Jeffery nodded and stood up. Edwards saw that Jeffery had not only left the knife on his seat, he had also dropped the other end of the handcuffs. Before Jeffery had time to realise his mistake, Edwards jumped to his feet and punched Jeffery as hard as he could, knocking him to the floor. Edwards ran to the door, unlocked it, and ran into the night. At around 11:30 p.m. on July 22nd, Tracy Edwards flagged down a patrol car on the corner of North 25th Street. Pointing to the handcuff hanging from his wrist, Edwards explained how a, quote, freak had put it there and planned to kill him. Edwards asked the officers if they could use their keys to remove the cuffs. When their keys did not work, the officers agreed to accompany him back to the apartment he had just escaped. Neither Edwards nor the police officers could have foreseen the horror that they would find inside the apartment. When the trio arrived at the apartment, Jeffery invited them in, smiling confidently. He acknowledged that he had put the handcuffs on Edwards, but did not offer a reason why. At this point, Edwards told the officers that Jeffery had had a large knife and spoke of Jeffrey's bizarre comments about eating his heart. Again, Jeffery offered no explanation, but he indicated to Officer Rolf Muller that the handcuff was on the dresser in the bedroom. When the officer entered the bedroom, Jeffery made an attempt to push past him to retrieve the key himself. The second officer, Robert Rath, ordered Jeffery to, quote, back off. Officer Muller walked to the dresser and found the top drawer open. On closer inspection, he saw scores of Polaroid photographs inside, some of which depicted nude men in various stages of dismemberment. Officer Muller noted the decor of the room in the photographs. It was the room which he now stood. He walked back into the living room where his partner was talking to Jeffery. He held the Polaroids up, and when he saw the shocked look on his partner's face, he said, quote, these are for real. When Jeffery realised that the officers had found his photographs, he suddenly lunged forward, fighting in an attempt to evade arrest. Pamela Bass, a neighbour, heard the police officers tussle with Jeffery, with one officer shouting, quote, get the fucking cuffs, to his partner. During the commotion, Pamela heard Jeffery fight against a restraint and would later describe what she heard, saying, quote, he howled like an animal, just a loud screeching, inhuman. After battle, Officer Muller opened the refrigerator. Inside, he made eye contact with the severed head of a black male. The officer turned to Jeffery, who looked straight back at him, and he said, quote, for what I did, I should be dead. A detailed search of the apartment was quickly ordered and conducted by the Criminal Investigation Bureau. Although pre-warned of what they were likely to find inside, many of the officers who entered apartment 213, donned in protective hazard suits and breathing apparatus, had to undergo specialist psychological counselling to help recover from what they had found. A total of 4 severed heads were found in and around the kitchen and inside the fridge. A soup pan on the stove was found to contain human brains that had been marinated in a tomato broth. A selection of hands and feet were also found boiled in another pan. In the kitchen, officers recovered several glass jars, which contained the genitalia of 3 men which had been preserved in saline. A total of 7 skulls, some painted, some bleached, were found inside the bedroom. In addition, officers found a pool of blood at the bottom of the fridge, along with 2 human hearts and lumps of human muscle, each wrapped in plastic sandwich bags. Inside the freezer, officers discovered an entire torso, plus a bag full of human organs. Miscellaneous pieces of human flesh were stuck in ice at the bottom of the freezer. Elsewhere, officers found 2 entire skeletons, a pair of severed hands, and a mummified scalp. In a large blue drum in the bedroom, they recovered 3 torsos dissolving in acid. A total of 74 Polaroids, which detailed the dismemberment and dissection of several men, were found throughout the apartment. When talking about recovering body parts, Jeffrey Jensen, the chief medical examiner on the Dahmer case, commented that, quote, "It is like we were dismantling someone's museum." Jeffrey Jensen also reflected on the search of the apartment, saying, quote, "There was a portable freezer in the front room, and it was almost out of place in its position. We really kind of walked around it for the longest time. I guess we didn't have the nerve to open it up and see what was inside, but we didn't anticipate anything. But once we opened up the container and saw another head in there, it became, it becomes real for us, I think." Jeffrey Jensen would also describe how they kept finding more and more body parts, saying, quote, "We're walking down the hallway. There was a small closet and there was a large stainless steel cook pot. And when we looked in there were some human hands and male genitalia that had been dried or desiccated." Investigators commented that there was very little actual food in the apartment, just condiments. This led officers to believe that Jeffrey had mostly fed on the flesh of his victims. Beginning in the early hours of June 23rd, 1991, Jeffrey was questioned by Detective Patrick Kennedy. Over the following 2 weeks, Detective Kennedy and later Detective Patrick Murphy would conduct many interviews with Jeffrey, which when combined totaled over 60 hours. Jeffrey had waived his right for a lawyer throughout the entirety of the interrogation, claiming he wished to confess to everything, saying, quote, "I created this horror, and it only makes sense. I do everything to put an end to it." Jeffrey admitted to murdering 17 men, 16 in Milwaukee and 1 in Ohio. During police interviews, Jeffrey admitted to necrophilia with many of his victims, including on one occasion performing sexual acts during dismemberment. Jeffrey also spoke of the huge effort in dismembering a body. He explained how blood would pool inside the chest cavity after death, and as a result, he would have to first remove all internal organs, then suspend the torso over the bathtub to drain. Jeffrey also admitted to cannibalism, having eaten hearts, livers, biceps, and other muscles of his victims. He explained that by eating parts of the body, his victim would become a part of him, a way to keep them with him. It became clear to investigators that although 17 men died at his hands, Jeffrey did not particularly enjoy the killing. It was not the driving force behind his lust. The desire to have the ultimate submissive sexual partner became an obsession, and the only way to fulfill his fantasies was to murder them. It was a means to an end, as Jeffrey put it. However, the act of dismemberment was a huge sexual thrill in which he received immense pleasure. When asked if he felt sexually excited whilst dismembering a victim, Jeffrey said, quote, "As time went on, yes, it did get sexual. I started saving the skeletons and preserve other body parts, and one thing led to another, as it took more and more deviant type behaviours to satisfy my urges." Investigating officers wanted to know why the rate of killing dramatically increased in the last 2 months. Jeffrey claimed he was completely swept along with his compulsions to kill, adding, quote, "It was an incessant and never-ending desire to be with someone at whatever cost. It just filled my thoughts all day long." During interrogation, Jeffrey explained the reason he kept the skulls, and in 2 cases, kept the entire skeletons of his victims. He explained he was in the process of constructing a private altar which would stand as a constant reminder of his murders. He planned to place the skulls upon the black table in his living room, the table which he had photographed several bodies, and display the skulls as a centerpiece. Adorned at the end of the table would stand the skeletons of Ernest Miller and Oliver Lacey. When officers asked Jeffrey whom the altar was for, he answered, quote, "Myself. It was a place where I could feel at home." He also explained it would be used as a place for meditation, where he would draw the strength and power from those he killed. Investigators asked whether he was close to completing the altar, to which he replied, quote, "If this," his arrest, "had happened 6 months later, that's what you would have found." On July 25th, 1991, Jeffrey Lionel Dahmer was charged on 4 counts of murder. By August 22nd, he was charged with a further 11. On September 14th, investigators in Ohio had discovered hundreds of bone fragments in the location that Jeffrey claimed he murdered his first victim. After investigation, medical examiners formally identified 2 molars and a vertebrae, which were then x-rayed and determined that they had belonged to Stephen Hicks. 3 days later, Jeffrey was charged with the murder of Stephen Hicks. With the attempted murder of Tracy Edwards, nor with the murder of Stephen Tomey. He was not charged with Shiomi's murder because the Milwaukee County District Attorney could not bring charges of murder if it could not be proven beyond reasonable doubt. As Jeffrey had no memory of actually committing murder, and the fact there was no physical evidence of the murder, it could not be proven. At a scheduled preliminary hearing on January 13, 1992, Jeffrey pled guilty to all charges of murder in the first degree. However, his counsel claimed diminished responsibility due to insanity. The trial of Jeffrey Dahmer began on January 30th, 1992, in which he was tried for 16 counts of murder before Judge Lawrence Graham. By pleading guilty earlier in the month, Jeffrey had waived his right to an initial trial to establish guilt. The issue to be debated during the trial was determine whether Jeffrey suffered from a mental condition that would mean he was not fit to stand trial. The prosecution's main argument was that having a mental disorder did not deprive Jeffrey the ability to appreciate the criminality of his conduct, nor did it deprive him the ability to resist his impulses. The defense argued that the mental disease Jeffrey suffered, plus the intense obsessions of lust, meant he was unable to stop or alter his actions. Defense expert Dr. Fred Berlin, a specialist in sexual disorder.
What's that, Nikki? This is completely filtered and everything, hon. So, I mean, I appreciate that, though. Yeah, all of this. And again, that house, I forgot to jump in. Look, it's Seth Rogen, everyone. When I've been to that house, standing in that same spot those people were years ago. It's the feeling of it was weird. And then, no, I appreciate that, hon. And then to realize that they had found bones of somebody there when we were at that point was just like, whoa, it was kind of an overwhelming feeling to think about at that point. Kind of crazy. So it is what it is. Again, thank you, Nikki. I appreciate that, honey.
Orders testified that Jeffrey was unable to conform to law at the time he committed the murders, as he had suffered from paraphilia, and more specifically, necrophilia. Furthermore, Dr. Carl Wallston, a forensic psychiatrist, diagnosed Jeffrey with borderline personality disorder, schizotypal personality disorder, necrophilia, alcohol dependence, and a psychotic disorder, all of which left him unable to control his behaviour. The prosecution rejected the defence's argument, declaring Jeffrey was not insane. Forensic psychiatrist Dr. Philip Resnick testified that Jeffrey did not suffer from necrophilia, as Jeffrey himself had stated he preferred live sexual partners. This was evident in the fact that he had attempted to create his own unresistant, submissive sexual partners by injecting acid into their brains. Jeffrey's desire was to dominate, not to purely have sex with the dead. District Attorney Michael McCann took the stand and insisted Jeffrey was not insane, but was in fact a calculated, rational murderer who suffered from deviant behaviour, but who was completely sane. Michael McCann called Dr. Frederick Allen Fostel to the stand to substantiate the claim. He told the courtroom that, quote, a mental status examination showed Dahmer to be in control, in my professional opinion. He does have a psychiatric disorder, and had this disorder before, during, and after his slayings. This disorder is sexual in nature, principally necrophilia, but this disorder does not in itself make him lack substantial capacity to conform his behaviour to the requirement of the law. As well as professional medical experts, the defence presented Jeffrey's last intended victim, Tracy Edwards, to the stand. He told the disgusted court what he was subjected to in apartment 213. He described seeing a huge blood stain on the mattress he was put on, and later, when re-entering the apartment with police officers, he saw a severed hand under the bed. He told the jury how Jeffrey had told him that, quote, if you don't do what I say, I'm going to kill you. I've done this before. Don't make a move. Fighting back tears, Edwards told how Jeffrey condemned him, saying, quote, you'll never leave here. It won't be long. I'll show you things you won't believe. Edwards testified that Jeffrey had retrieved a human skull from within a filing cabinet and told Edwards, quote, this is how I get people to stay with me. You will stay with me too. Edwards remarked how on first meeting Jeffrey, saying, quote, he seemed friendly and normal at first, but turned crazy. Like I told police the first time, this freak, this guy is trying to kill me. Milwaukee attorney, a member of Jeffrey's counsel, Gerald Boyle, asked Edwards, what impression was made on your mind by the conduct of Jeffrey Dahmer, by the acts of Jeffrey Dahmer, by the manner, experience, and the circumstances of Jeffrey Dahmer? that you observed? Edward simply replied, "It's like I told the police, this guy is crazy." Gerald Boyle would later use a large blackboard to illustrate Jeffrey's increasing madness, saying, quote, "He begins by living for the weekends and ends up eating his victims and spending most of his time in bed. As a total human being, that is what I see in Jeffrey Dahmer, a person who is into cannibalism, a druggie obsessed with sexual fantasies and perversions, rocking and chanting. This is Jeffrey Dahmer. He started to experiment more and more because his sickness is growing greater and greater. He began taking photographs of his victims' corpses. He didn't even know that he was mentally ill. He just thought he was bad. I submit to you that Jeffrey Dahmer is so out of control that he cannot be punished by ordering imprisonment. He is out of control." Two court-appointed mental health professionals, forensic psychiatrist George Palermo and clinical psychologist Samuel Friedman, testified independently from either prosecution or defense. Palermo would state that the murders were the result of, quote, "pent-up aggression within himself. He killed these men because he wanted to kill the source of his homosexual attraction to them. In killing them, he killed what he hated in himself." Palermo concluded that Jeffrey was a sexual sadist with antisocial behavior disorder, but was legally sane. Friedman argued that Jeffrey killed because he longed for companionship, saying, quote, "Mr. Dahmer is not psychotic." He then spoke kindly of Jeffrey, describing him as, quote, "amiable, pleasant to be with, courteous, with a sense of humour, conventionally handsome and charming in manner. He was, and still is, a bright young man." He also diagnosed Jeffrey with a personality disorder with borderline obsessive compulsion and sadistic traits. He also expressed his professional belief that Jeffrey was legally sane. The prosecution's final argument was to accuse Jeffrey of suffering from a disordered mind, not a diseased one, and as such should be deemed responsible for his actions. They pleaded with the jury to identify with the victims, not with the defendant. The officer who had made the initial arrest of Jeffrey took the stand. He told the court, quote, "I began questioning him about the way in which he selected and approached his victims. He stated that before going out for the evening, he generally knew whether or not he planned to commit a homicide. The trial would last 2 weeks, and on February 14th, both counsels delivered their closing arguments to the jury. Each counsel were allowed to present for 2 hours each. Gerald Boyle took the time to repeatedly refer to the testimonies he had from mental health professionals, almost all of which diagnosed Jeffrey with a mental disease. Boyle argued that his compulsive killings were the result of, quote, a sickness that he discovered, not chose. He finished by declaring Jeffrey was a profoundly sick individual who was, quote, so out of control he could not conform his conduct anymore. Following Boyle's 75-minute closing argument, Michael McCann took the stand for the prosecution, where he described Jeffrey as sane and in full control, knowing exactly what he was doing. This was evident by the extreme means he used to stay undetected. He declared that Jeffrey killed with hostility, anger, frustration, resentment and hatred, and that all 17 victims had, quote, died merely to afford Dahmer a period of sexual pleasure. McCann closed by stating that by Jeffrey pleading guilty but insane to the charges, he was only trying to escape the responsibility and punishment of the crimes. On February 15th, the court reconvened to hear the verdict. Jeffrey Dahmer was ruled to be legally sane and had not suffered from a mental disorder at the time of the murders for which he was tried. On the first 2 counts, Jeffrey was sentenced to life imprisonment without parole plus 10 years. The remaining 14 counts all carried a mandatory sentence of life imprisonment without parole plus 70 years. The death penalty, which many people called for, was never an option for Judge Graham to consider at the penalty phase, as the state of Wisconsin had abolished capital punishment. In an unprecedented move, Judge Graham allowed relatives of the victims to deliver impact statements to the court. Dorothy Straughter, mother of Curtis Straughter, spoke directly to Jeffrey, looking him in the eyes, and said, quote,
"My name is Dorothy Straughter. I'm Curtis Straughter's mother. I didn't have nothing prepared to say. It's just a few things that I would like to say. You took my 17-year-old son away from me. I'll never get a chance to tell him that I loved him. I'd have a chance to tell him that I loved him the last time I saw him, which will be a year tomorrow. You took my daughter's only brother away from her. She'll never have a chance to sing and dance with him again. You took my mother's oldest grandchild from her, and for that I can never forgive you. I hope you can deal with what you've done. I'm trying hard to. You almost destroyed me, but I refuse to let you destroy me. I will carry on.
Rita Isbell, older sister to Errol Lindsay, gave an emotional but volatile statement, saying,
"My name is Rita Isbell, and I'm the oldest sister of Errol Lindsay. Whatever your name is, Satan, I'm mad. This is how you act when you are out of control. I don't want to ever see my mother have to go through this again. Never, Jeffrey. Jeffrey, I hate you. I hate you. Something's out of control. You got killed. You got dead. Look at me, motherfucker. Let me kill you.
Rita had to be restrained as she charged at Jeffrey. Once proceedings were done, Jeffrey himself was given time to deliver a personal statement. He said, quote, "Your Honor, you know it's all over now. It has never been a case of trying to get free. I never wanted freedom. Frankly, I wanted death for myself. This has been a case to tell the world that I did what I did, not for reasons of hate. I hate no one. I knew I was sick or evil or both. Now I believe I was sick. The doctors told me about my sickness, and now I have some peace. I realize how much harm I have caused. I did my best to make amends after my arrest, but no matter what I did, I could not undo the terrible harm I have caused. My attempts to help identify the remains was the best I could do, and that was hardly anything. I feel so bad for what I did to those poor families, and I understand their rightful hate. I also know I will be in prison
Okay,
for the
Heather,
rest of my
thanks, man.
life, and I know I will have to turn to God to get me through each day. I should have stayed with God. I tried and failed and created a Holocaust. Thank God there will be no more harm that I can do. I believe that only the Lord Jesus Christ can save me from my sins. I decided to go through with this trial for a number of reasons. One of these was to let the world know that these were not crimes of hate. I wanted the people of Milwaukee, which I deeply hurt, to know the truth of what I did. I did not want the world to think these were hate crimes. I did not want any unanswered questions. Now, all the questions have been answered. I wanted to find out just what it was that caused me to be so bad and evil. But most of all, Mr. Boyle and myself decided that maybe there was a way to tell the world that they could get some help before they end up being hurt or hurting someone. I think the trial did that, and I take the blame for what I did. In closing, I just want to say that I hope God has forgiven me for what I have done. Thank you, Your Honor. Now I am prepared for your sentence, for which I know will be the maximum. I ask for no consideration. Upon sentencing, Jeffrey was transferred to Columbia Correctional Institution in Portage, Wisconsin. For the first year of his incarceration, Jeffrey was placed in solitary confinement due to concern for his physical safety should he come into contact with fellow inmates. After a year of solitary confinement, Jeffrey consented to be transferred to a less secure unit, where he was assigned a 2-hour work detail program, cleaning the toilet block. During his sentence, Jeffrey devoted himself to Christianity and became a born-again Christian. In May 1994, Jeffrey was baptized by Ray Ratcliffe, a minister in the Church of Christ. Following his baptism, Ratcliffe would visit Jeffrey on a weekly basis, where they would regularly discuss the prospect of death, with Jeffrey questioning whether he was sinning against God by continuing to live. In July 1994, a fellow inmate, Osvaldo Dorothy, attempted to slash Jeffrey's throat with a razor blade as Jeffrey returned from a weekly church service. Jeffrey received superficial wounds, but was not seriously hurt in the attack. Jeffrey retained regular contact with his father and stepmother, and he also began to have visits from his mother, who, prior to his arrest, had not seen Jeffrey since Christmas 1983. On the morning of November 28, 1994, Jeffrey was cleaning the toilet block as assigned by his work detail. Accompanying him were 2 other inmates, Jesse Anderson and Christopher Scarver, a schizophrenic who referred to himself as Christ. During the work detail, the trio were left unsupervised for around 20 minutes as they cleaned the showers in the prison gymnasium. At around 8:10 a.m., a prison officer discovered Jeffrey laying on the shower floor, bleeding from head and facial wounds, having been bludgeoned with a 20-inch metal bar. His head had also been repeatedly struck against the shower's tiled floor during the assault. Although Jeffrey was alive when found by the officer, he was pronounced dead just an hour later. Jesse Anderson had also been beaten with the same weapon, and he too died 2 days later. Christopher Scarver was serving a life sentence for a murder committed in 1990, admitted that he was the one who had attacked the 2 inmates, saying, quote, "God told me to do it. Jesse Anderson and Jeffrey Dahmer are dead." Scarver reported that during the attack it said, quote, "I do not care if I live or die. Go ahead."
Also understand that the story that I read a lot about this because it happened so close to me. I was mesmerized by it. Um, it's kind of questionable about how this went down. This gentleman here had been talking to himself and spouting things out during his periods of time that he was for probably weeks before this happened, okay, and making comments that other people were hearing, other inmates, other COs were hearing, so on and so forth, and they knew that he was dangerous to be left alone with anything. And it's amazing to me, and it seems kind of funny, I'll just put it that way, that the guards left him alone, especially with Jeffrey. Okay. So that was just interesting to me. So I thought that was quite interesting. To me, it seems as if it was something that was done on purpose for whatever reason. It is what it is. I don't know. I just, it's something that just seemed a little too interesting and too, mm, I don't know. You guys know what I mean. For sure. Yeah, I really feel like it was. I'm just saying. I really, really feel like it was done on purpose, just because somebody thought he deserved to die.
Head and kill me. Other than that, Jeffrey remained completely silent for the remainder of the attack. Upon learning of Jeffrey's death, Joyce Dahmer spoke angrily to the media, saying, quote, "Now is everybody happy? Now that he's bludgeoned to death, is that good enough for everyone?" Lionel Dahmer believed that there was a conspiracy surrounding Jeffrey's death. During an interview with Larry King in 2004, Lionel said, quote, "I talked with an attorney who has access to that prison quite intimately, and what happened was there was about 20 to 40 minutes of time where no one, that is the staff of the prison, no one knew the whereabouts of this person who took a barbell, the rod, the bar from the weightlifting equipment, and hid it and bludgeoned Jeff to death." Larry King, in response, asked, quote, "In other words, they let him loose for all that time without knowing the whereabouts to a prisoner." Answering, Lionel said, quote, this attorney said he was confident that it was something that was allowed to happen, as he put it. Over the course of the years, Jeffrey Lionel Dahmer killed 17 young men and boys. They were Stephen Hicks, 19, Stephen Tuomi, 26, James Dox Tater, 14, Richard Guerrero, 25, Anthony Sears, 26, Eddie Smith, 36, Raymond Smith, 27, Ernest Miller, 22, David Thomas, 23, Curtis Straughter, 19, Errol Lindsay, 19, Tony Hughes, 31, Conorak Simpson Phone, 14, Matt Turner, 20, Jeremiah Weinberger, 23, Oliver Lacey, 23, and Joseph Braidhoft, 25.
And I'm still not 100% positive that he may not have been involved with the Adam Walsh thing. I can't, it's too coincidental for it to not be something that's a possibility. Okay. So just saying, folks, just saying. Quite interesting to say the very least. There was definitely something uh, seriously wrong. Seriously wrong. Okay, one second. One moment, everyone.
It's going to sound bad.
What's up, Inanna? Good to have you here. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. Appreciate you.
Welcome to Watch Mojo. And today, looking at 10 of the creepiest Jeffrey Dahmer interview moments.
Did you like feeling evil?
No, I didn't. But I tried to overcome the thoughts, and it worked for a while. But eventually, I gave in.
For this list, we're looking at some of the most off-putting and eerie moments from interviews with the serial killer Jeffrey Dahmer. Which of these moments gives you the most creeps? Let us know in the comments. Number 10, a normal guy. One thing that continuously comes up in the recounting of Dahmer's interviews and courtroom demeanor is that he seemed like a completely ordinary man. In 1993, Nancy Glass of Inside Edition was granted an interview with Dahmer at the Columbia Correctional Institution. She recently appeared on News Nation with Chris Cuomo, a segment in which she recalled that Dahmer seemed so normal, and that was the most terrifying thing about him. In fact, this image and his ability to manipulate had him fooling police when one of his victims escaped, something that likely would not have happened had he been more the Charles Manson type.
If he was like Charles Manson, you would say, oh, I could see that coming a mile away. But because he was so normal, he was able to get away with so much. It's what made him so terrifying.
Number 9, the motive. Once Jeffrey Dahmer was caught, he didn't hold back on confessing or explaining the motivation behind his unforgivable actions. In a recently released extra footage scene from the Nancy Glass interview, Dahmer said he did not kill out of anger or hate, but because he, quote, wanted to keep his victims with him.
Not because I was angry with them, not because I hated them, but because I wanted to keep them with me.
His needs escalated, resulting in cannibalism. The matter-of-fact, monotonous tone of Dahmer's voice is especially disturbing. It doesn't appear to be a companionship issue, but rather the most complete form of control one can have over another. Dahmer had admitted to feeling a sexual thrill from that kind of control, and this is what motivated his cannibalism.
I just wanted to have the person under my complete control, not having to consider their wishes, being able to keep them there as long as I wanted. It's not easy to say that, but that's what the motive was.
Number 8, dismemberment. In 1994, Stone Phillips conducted a televised interview with the serial killer and his father, Lionel Dahmer. Once again, Jeffrey Dahmer's actions were recounted, as were his motives.
And I acted on my fantasies, and that's where everything went wrong.
Phillips did not hold back on his line of questioning, and at one point asked Dahmer if there was something sexual about the fact that he would dismember bodies. Dahmer responded without hesitation that there was, claiming that, quote, it took more and more deviant-type behaviors to satisfy his urges.
And so I just spiraled out of control.
When Dahmer's apartment was searched following his arrest, a number of human remains were found in various states of decomposition. Number 7, a zombie-like state.
At first it was just curiosity, and then it became compulsive.
As time went on, Dahmer experimented with processes to render his victims completely subservient. Dahmer's reasoning behind this was that
yeah, we're going to hash for sure.
Altered state, one he referred to as quote, zombie-like. In the Nancy Glass interview, Dahmer discusses this method eerily matter-of-factly, with the same monotony and passivity as anything else he speaks of, also mentioning that these methods never worked completely.
Could someone like you be stopped? Could you be helped?
No, I was dead set on going with this compulsion. It was the only thing that gave me any satisfaction.
Number 6, overwhelmed. Jeffrey Dahmer's lawyer, Wendy Patricus, recently spoke with documentary filmmakers on the limited series Conversations with a Killer, the Jeffrey Dahmer tapes. In the series, she recounted her experiences, as well as relayed Dahmer's confessions and story. She refers to Dahmer's actions as an addiction that kept growing.
I think he had the same addiction to the killing as it grew and grew and grew. He needed it more and more and more.
Dahmer revealed that he couldn't wait. He, quote, needed the excitement of it.
He said, Wendy, I couldn't help it. I needed the excitement of it.
Number 5, the taste. There are some interview tapes that were not publicly released. However, if you really want to uncover them, transcripts in all their horror are available. In 1992, Jeffrey Dahmer was interrogated by the FBI concerning a tip given to them that the serial killer was also responsible for the kidnapping and murder of a boy in Florida. He was ultimately not guilty of this, but the interview covered some other ground as well. Dahmer.
That is the Adam Walsh case they're talking about.
Killings were discussed. ventured into especially dark territory about his victims. When asked about what he did with some of their remains, he responds, quote, "You've had filet mignon, haven't you?" He then elaborates in a way we wish he wouldn't have, claiming that it's, quote, "very tender." Number 4. A nice-looking face. All bases are covered in the Wendy Patricus tapes, and it's chilling to say the least. When Dahmer recalled the murder of Anthony Sears, he spoke of Sears's looks and how he had, quote, "a nice-looking face."
He had a nice looking face.
He therefore decided to preserve Sears's head. This was the first time Dahmer tried this method to preserve a victim's head, something he casually referred to as,
Just branching out into different variations.
when asked if he loved Sears. Dahmer answered that if he knew how to love, he probably would have loved him. Number 3. The carrying case. He kept a few pieces of the boy's body, which he stored in an airtight case and took with him to work. He spoke openly about this carrying case in the Nancy Glass interview, and how he'd keep it stored in his work locker.
Were you almost flaunting it?
Yes, but that's how strong the compulsion was. That's how bizarre the desire was. I wanted to keep something of the person with me.
In the Patricus tapes, Dahmer reveals that it didn't quite turn out as he would have wished, as with time it no longer looked like Sears.
By that time, it was fairly obvious that it didn't look like Tony anymore.
At the end of the Stone Phillips interview, as Dahmer was being escorted out, he pointed out something of interest, an equipment case that looked like the one he'd owned.
Just a point of interest, that's the type of box. This is the type of box.
He wanted us to know that box looked strikingly like the one his father had found.
Number 2. The shrine. When Dahmer was arrested, he was in the midst of a project, building a grotesque shrine of sorts. In the Patricus, Dahmer described the shrine as, quote, "a remembrance" and a, quote, "keepsake" of his victims.
It was my own, private little world, I had complete control. That's about the ultimate control you can have.
Dahmer drew a diagram of the planned shrine for Patricus, which he shows us in the Netflix documentary, and which Dahmer actually signed. The thinking behind it seems to have been related to control, but also as a way to keep his victims with him. It's truly eerie to imagine Dahmer seeking some sort of comfort from a shrine of human remnants.
Jeffrey's building the shrine was all about power and control for him, and that each trait that he liked out of each one of them was something that was now internalized into his own life.
Before we continue, be sure to subscribe to our channel and ring the bell to get notified.
And there's some strange interviews with him. I think Miss Sherry, I think she's taking a break, Hash. I'm not 100% sure. She was in here earlier today. I haven't seen her since, but I don't know for sure. I know she was having some issues with some people, so Miss Sherry was talking about Glenda Cleveland. This was the woman that tried to save one of the people that he killed. So yeah, there is a story about that. One moment. All right, guys, sorry about that. Yeah, I know, Hash. I know. And again, everybody's got him crucified, and you got to remember, he's innocent until proven guilty. I'm not sure, Amy, same thing I was saying. I don't know what's going on. I don't know if she's taking a break. She had mentioned something like that. And I know she was struggling with some people, but I haven't seen her since this morning when she was in here. I did send her a couple emails. Just told her to keep her head up, that we're here. If she needs anybody to talk to. Any of that kind of stuff. So just wish the best for her, and hope everything works out okay. And it should be. I'm pretty sure we'll see her again soon. I think she's got a passion for this that she's not ready to let go of. And that's the best I think I can get on that, because I really haven't talked to her since early this afternoon. She wasn't in a great mood then. So absolutely, guys. So does anybody have any questions, comments, theories, or anything in regards to this tonight? By any chance?
something within your eyes said it could be the last time.
He's in the top 10. Sorry about that muting, guys. He's in the top 10 for sure.
The first child of Joyce.
And that's what I'm doing right now, Miss Brandy. Thank you so much. Sorry, guys, for the muting thing. I always do that. I always do it.
Your Honor, it is over now. This has never been a...
Thank you, Laughing Stock. So, everybody. Oh my goodness. Where are we? Hold on a minute. Okay. I have two movies that we're gonna be doing good, Hash. Thank you. Two movies that we're gonna be doing. I'm gonna give you guys a choice to pick from. One is a carryover from last week. I wonder where Mikey's at. He didn't jump in here tonight. And it is the movie Donnie Brasco, again based on true crime events. And the other one is called To Catch a Killer. Just as was asked in a chat earlier, that one is the true story, or is the movie based on the true story of John Wayne Gacy. So, guys, vote away. Whichever one wins is the one that wins. That's what we're going to be doing Thursday. There he is. What's up, Mikey? Just wondering where you were, brother. Good to have you here. That's a fact, Hash. That's a fact. Yeah, we're gonna go back to that one, Dustin. We had talked about it at one point and never got to go back to it, but we will. It was outvoted, and then, but we definitely still got some time to cover those. So at this point right now, we're voting on Donnie Brasco, and then the next one was called To Catch a Killer. For those of you that aren't familiar with what Donnie Brasco is it's based on a true story about a mafia infiltrator that worked for the FBI. The movie has Johnny Depp and quite a few other people in it that are very, very famous actors. And it's a great story, and it's all true. Every bit of it's true. So, like I said, guys, not every case that we cover is going to be based on horrific serial killers. There's a lot of them, but, you know, at least some of them. No red. No red. She's home 2 weeks and away for 2 weeks. Ah, there we go. Klaus Schwab. Good point. Good point. That's a good point. Oh, absolutely, Sandra. Absolutely. Great. One of my favorite movies of all times. Absolute. Absolute. And the movie To Catch a Killer, like I said, is based on the John Wayne Gacy story. That's another great one too. If you guys haven't seen these movies, you should catch them both. Very good movies. And of course, I'll get to show you a clip of whichever one wins for tonight. So vote away, everybody. Vote away. Again, I see 29 people here, guys. Please make sure you leave some DNA on that like button for me. Like it up, share it out, and leave me a comment after the show. I'd greatly appreciate that. I can do that, Miss Boone. There's a couple of those that are based on true stories that they made movies for, so I can definitely do that. All right, that one froze, or that one looks like it stopped moving. So we got 75% said yes to Donnie, and 25 said no. That's a pretty good coverage there. Let's see what we got here for the next one. Again, this one is called To Catch a Killer. And this is the John Wayne Gacy story, folks. And we're off. Vote away on that one as well. Yeah, I can definitely do that, Boone. There's quite a few of those actually that are true stories that actually happened that they've turned into movies too. The movie Point Break. I had Keanu Reeves, Patrick Swayze, quite a few of those. That's based on true events. That would actually be a pretty cool one to do because that's one of my favorite movies of all times. I loved that movie back in the day. Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. I plan on doing that actually, Hash. I have a list of stuff that's not um all based like serial killer stuff. You know what I mean? And that's on the list. Catch Me If You Can, The Wolf of Wall Street, stuff like that. Um, there's quite a few of those movies that are crime movies that were based on true stories. So that one's good. That one's actually a really good story. Again, another great movie. I'm not a big Leonardo DiCaprio fan, but in that movie, I'll tell you what, guys, he definitely earned any awards he got for that. That's a fact. That's a fact. All right, let's see what we got here, folks. 88% done, and it stopped moving. All right. And the answer is on this one 87 to 12. Wow. Big difference. So, To Catch a Killer it is. No Donnie Brasco yet, guys. So, To Catch a Killer. That's your homework, guys, for Thursday night. If you get a chance to check out the movie To Catch a Killer, it is about the John Wayne Gacy story. And again, definitely something to see. Let's see here. Welcome, Cammy Q. Good to see you. All right, let me see something here. One second. I think I might have had. There's two versions of this. That's true. That's very true, Hash. Devil in Disguise was another one too, guys, by the way, if you wanted to watch that version of it. One moment. All right, give me a second here. I'll give you guys a trailer. This movie came out in 1992, by the way. 1 second, everybody. All right, here we go.
The remains of 25 boys kidnapped and killed by John Gacy over a period of 6 years were found buried in the crawl space of his house. A 26th body was found under the concrete floor of the garage. The 27th under the floorboards in the recreation room.
John Wayne Gacy.
I need an assistant. Who wants to? No, I need somebody very smart, very talented, and very cute. How about you?
Respected businessman. Community leader.
Ho, 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 everybody.
And concealing a horrible secret.
How you doing? Listen, you interested in making some good money? Doing what?
We're investigating the disappearance of Christopher Gant.
I'm sorry, I can't tell you any more than I told the officer on the phone.
I believe Chris Gant is in there, and I want to get him out.
Oh, Mr. Policeman. Don't you know a clown can get away with murder? Huh?
The most vicious serial killer in American history.
So clever. He prides himself on being able to trick people.
His prey were the innocent.
Chris Gant is dead. Other boys are dead.
And no one could stop him.
But this bastard's too well connected, too clever for us. We're just
I think you're wrong.
It's the true story of Lieutenant Joe Kozensax.
Did Gacy take Chris back to the house?
The one cop who wouldn't give up.
Tell that dumb Pollock that come Friday, it's going to be his ass in the ringer.
I don't want that man free to hurt anyone anymore.
How's he picking on me? What the hell have I ever done to him?
He's been getting away with this for a long, long time.
Our passionate cop and his dedicated team created a plan that became the FBI's textbook on how to catch a serial killer.
Look at him. There they are. Make him go away, Jake.
It's all right. Get the hell out of here.
Got orders to keep Mr. Gacy under close surveillance. That's what we're doing.
This is absolutely illegal.
This is kidnapping and murder. His own lawyer is begging us not to let this guy get away.
Gant deserves to die. I don't realize it. Please, don't hurt me.
Say please again.
Michael Riding, Margot Kidder, and Brian Dennehy as John Wayne Gacy. To catch a killer.
Yeah, I was always pretty surprised that Brian Dennehy played this part, guys, because Brian Dennehy to me is, the guy from Cocoon. That's Brian, or from Tommy Boy or something, never John Wayne Gacy. So I was just kind of like, whoa, it's actually a really good movie. If you guys get a chance, check it out. If you can find it, check it out. It's a great, great movie. No lie. He played that part so good. Again, this is another one. I mean, it's got a pretty good, Brian Dennehy, Margot Kidder. Come on. I mean, that's Lois Lane, guys. Come on, you know. I mean, these are great actresses, and it was a great movie. It was something that wasn't like overly publicized back in the day. So I would check it out. I would. If you get a chance, go look for it. To Catch a Killer. It's from 1992. He was in When a Stranger Calls. Yes, yes. Another good one. Absolutely. So if you get a chance, check it out. Cocoon was awesome. That was one of the best movies ever made. You know, that's up there, at least for me. That's up there with like Batteries Not Included and stuff like that, you know. Oh, I know. It's weird. Isn't it weird, Inanna, that happens? Like the first person you see put into that that role is who sticks with you forever. It's crazy. I mean, Dennehy kind of has the build that Gacy had, but Gacy was not like Dennehy's. You're not being weird, but a way better looking guy than Gacy was, and obviously a better person for real in real life. But yeah, it was a part well played. He did very well with that. It was said that Dennehy is a method actor. I'm just curious what method he used to find that character, because that's crazy. It was great, folks. It was great. Very, very unsuspected too. I'll be honest with you. So yeah, if you guys get a chance, check it out, and we will tell you the true story that night, for sure. So that's it. There's the show for tonight, everybody. I hope you guys enjoyed it. And I hope to see you guys here again Thursday night. Again, guys, tomorrow I will be here between 12 noon and 12:30 p.m. Tomorrow, guys, we'll be back to the Idaho case. Excuse me, and we will have Miss WSU Kim, as she's called, is coming to come on panel and tell her story, explain some certain situations, and answer some questions, guys. So I hope that all you guys can make it for that tomorrow, early afternoon. Besides that, I hope you guys have a great rest of your night. I appreciate each and every one of you guys for stopping by tonight and supporting the channel and for hearing the story. I hope you enjoyed it. If there's any questions, no worries, Brandy. Thank you, dear. Absolutely, Miss Sandra. Thank you again for joining us tonight, all you guys. I appreciate that. Yes, Laughing Stock. They did John Leguizamo, which was weird to me. Very weird. It didn't fit character wise. I like Leguizamo as an actor, but not in that part. It was kind of off to me. But again, everybody have a great night. Do not forget to love yourselves and love each other. Don't change a thing about yourselves, because you guys are absolutely amazing. 100% Hash. I agree with that comment. 100%. There's so many good movies that were like this one. Like nobody even knew this existed. I did not until just a couple years ago. You know, and it made me want to go watch it immediately, and I did, and it was great. So check it out, folks. All right. Thank you, Laughing Stock. Again, anybody that's newer in here that's recently just subscribed, please, please, please know that I appreciate you so very much, and I am so glad to have you here. Love you too, brother. Absolutely. Again, folks, have a great night, and I will see you in the morning. Have a great one, folks. Bye-bye.